All right, hey,
Hello.
we're ready to go. So, hey Johnny, how's it going?
Pretty
Thank you.
good, pretty good. How's your day? It's a hump day today, so 2 more days until Friday, and we're off to a holiday season.
Lovely. So, yeah, thank you for joining me today. We always wanted to talk about stuff. I think we just met a few weeks ago, and we really hit it off. And feel like the conversation that we had about generally going about startup career, the building a community, and I figured that it would be an amazing opportunity for me to try to understand a little bit of what's going in your head, what's with you in the past, probably, and share some of the interesting stories and insight with our audience. And so, for those out there who don't know who you are, or who isn't as familiar as I am, tell me a little bit about yourself and what's keeping you busy in the last few moments.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. So I'm a B2B marketer. So right now I am working at a cybersecurity startup in San Francisco. So I've been doing demand gen and lead gen for them, just trying to get more qualified people into the funnel. And yeah, it's been doing well. And cybersecurity, as you know, is kind of like booming. And we are actually cybersecurity plus insurance. So it's like fintech and cybersecurity. So it's combining the best of both worlds together. And yeah, previous to that, I was at Meta. So doing some kind of like reverse engineer, like bad people, bad actor kind of marketing tactics to see how they abuse the platform. So I was hired because I was doing like more like creative kind of advertising and just trying to figure out how to actually be creative in using the Meta platform. So I have to think like a bad actor and see how they abuse the system. So I'm trying to reverse engineer the tactics and try to use machine learning and work with engineers to stop them from abusing the platform. And prior to that, I was doing makeup subscription, so doing performance marketing, running paid, and before that I was agency work. So have been doing agency work, in-house, big tech, and now B2B. So yeah, what's keeping me up at night, keeping me busy is just constantly trying to get my hands dirty on AI stuff, because I think AI is just going to be a new paradigm in everything we do beyond just marketing, operations, even legal. Like you can use AI to read all the contract stuff. So I find it very fascinating, and I hope you guys will also kind of tap into the power of AI.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I think this question has been asked for many times, but I think it's as a cliche. I would still go ahead and ask, like, how do you feel about AI towards, replacing what you're doing, or perhaps, what do you think about AI?
Yeah, I kind of think positively as a tech enthusiast. I like things all tech. People say that AI is going to replace your job. Yes, but I think it's most likely people who use AI will replace your job, not just AI alone. So you have to actually kind of be blend in with the AI because it can really accelerate, like building yourself like a digital clone or an army, like AI army, so they can do the work that you've been doing, and you can just sit on top of the business and strategize all the all the things you want your AI to do. So I think everyone should learn how to use AI at least, I don't know, like once per week. Like just try to learn it. Don't be afraid of it because they're your friend and they're not going to destroy you soon. So be friend with them and play around with it.
Right, right. I mean, it's more like a tool, right? It sounds like it's more like a tool, how you use it, rather than a solution. We still need human to go about it. You know,
Yeah.
let's dive into a little bit of your career, because you talked a lot about different stages, and to my best understanding, you basically started your career at something called TBG Digital, building social graphs, and now you have a sort of long journey. Can you tell me what's your proudest moment in your whole career, and if you
Wow.
don't mind also sharing, one of your lowest moment of your entire career?
Yeah, sounds good. I think proudest is going beyond myself because, as you know, as a kind of team leader, you have to actually develop a team to help you because you can only go so far. So I think developing a team is important, and you kind of get to know everyone's like expertise, and then you try to put a team together to to like like a soccer coach, like you put people in the right field and they will just help each other out, and the people actually who make the goal is not going to be the last person, it's going to be the whole team, right? It's like, think of it as a marketing attribution. It's not going to be last click. It's like multiple assisted clicks until it gets to the last click. So I think building a team, you can actually see an array of processes and people kind of thought mindset, and then you try to figure out which one you can use and make the most impact. So that will be the proudest moment. Just building something that is beyond yourself. The lowest part, I think, it will be not asking help fast or sooner enough, because I just feel like as an individual contributor, you're trying to learn everything yourself, and I feel like seeking for help is sort of like seeing your power go away. And I'm starting to think about it the opposite way. Like if you want to learn something fast, seek mentor. Doesn't matter; it has to be like online coach. It could be just anyone that you follow on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube. So I think don't be afraid to ask questions, and it would unlock more possibility within yourself.
I think these are great advice. And because I myself, I always look for learning opportunity as well. And I I definitely went through similar phases as you sort of mentioned. And can you walk me through? And I think from our conversation, I figured that you know one of one of your strength is to ask questions, and which also you mentioned in about don't be afraid of asking questions. Like, how would you go about to say learn how to ask good questions? Like, is there any tips that you could give us?
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's coming from McKinsey, but it's like the five whys. So I think that's pretty standard. You just drill down to the atomic level or first principles level, where you just ask a question that it can no longer be broken down. So I think that is something. For example, let's say, how do you get your email to deliver into someone's inbox, right? So this is the whole concept of email deliverability. So you ask how, and then you will say, just make sure that the email address is valid. Okay, so the email address is valid, right? So that person actually exists, that email. And then now you ask, okay, so the email is valid. Then how do you make sure that the email actually get read? And then you begin to ask, okay, all right, so the email actually landed on someone's inbox or email kind of like system, but does it land on the inbox or does it land on spam? Or the promotions tab, right? So there are three possibilities now. So 33%, 33%, 33%. Then you try to ask another one, like, how do you make sure that they get read? They read the email. So you now look at the opens, right? The open rate, right? Then you kind of ask, okay, but the robot, the bot or the spider can also open the email. Then how do you know if it's a human open or robot open, right? Then you look at the timestamp between like the email that gets delivered versus email that open. If it's within like the same period, I don't know. Like, I mean, do you open email as soon as it arrives? Not likely, right? Maybe some occasion, but usually there's a time delay. So if it's instant open, then that means it's a bot. Then you kind of discredit that email open. So those are like the framework that I look at, like how sorry, why, and just drill down to the bottom. I hope that addresses your question.
Okay, so sorry. So pretty much, basically, dive as deep as possible until you hit sort of a self-explanatory answer, and when you reach that point, you know that you've already drilled down to the deepest part, and that's where and sort of how good question comes from. Is that a correct understanding?
Yeah. I think there's a saying that if you can ask a good question, you already solved half of the solution. Maybe it's by Albert Einstein. I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of like a similar thinking. Like ask a good question and you get good result. But
Do
that's
you
only for known. Like unknown. Of course, you don't know, right? So that's another thing. Like it's a bit tricky.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because when we're talking about question, and we're now both in a B2B group, a WhatsApp group that our friend Eric's in, which
Yeah.
he created, and yeah, and of course being someone like yourself who've been worked and sort of lived in the Silicon Valley sort of culture, What would you say sort of like asking good question is it's one of the biggest difference between the community that you could see in the Western world versus the ones that you see in Hong Kong or the Eastern culture? Would you say
Hmm.
that's the biggest difference? And what else? Is there any other differences that you see?
Yeah. I think maybe is yeah. So asking question is a good thing. The other thing is just challenging the status quo or disrupting the normalcy. Like basically go beyond what everyone is talking about. So you're a little bit kind of on the distribution curve. You're on like the far right side. Be a contrarian. Don't care about what other people think. I think that's kind of like different. I'm not sure if it's like Western or Eastern kind of thinking or philosophy, but I do see like Silicon Valley they tend to have kind of like the contrarian view about the world and how they can use technology to make things better.
Interesting. What do you think it's the reason? Is there any sort of like theory about it?
Yeah, you like I've kind of looked at like why Silicon Valley is so successful. Like, of course, I'm not like historian or I'm not a scholar or a VC, right? But from my observation, is it stems from the history or the origin of Silicon Valley, which is like you know big like famous prestigious university like Stanford, and then there's like manufacturers of silicon chips. And when you think about like research plus application, when they combine it, it creates just kind of like this kind of like the perfect storm for innovation to happen. I think, and then people kind of like big companies bring in like tech talent to build an even bigger leverage. And yeah, I think that's where kind of the magic happens. And yeah, and then just then you have a lot of people with the same mindset, intention to build something great to change the world. Then you have this kind of like the neural, like all the neurons firing within the same kind of geography, and like-minded people draw each other, and then that's where kind of like innovation happens. And that's pretty much that's what I think. That's my kind of theory behind why Silicon Valley is successful. But don't get me wrong. Like I think the world has changed, and there's still a lot of potential in Silicon Valley. But I think like there's more accessibility, and people are democratizing kind of like tech, because basically you can just run the whole thing using your laptop, and if you have Wi-Fi, I think you can achieve anything. Maybe one thing is lacking is the community, where it fosters innovation and kind of again challenging the status quo. So I think that's one thing that is lack of anywhere in the world, is just having a melting pot of all the kind of disruptors all in one place versus decentralized.
Well, you talked about status quo and challenging status quo quite a bit. Is there a status quo that you feel like you wanted to challenge? And let's say you have all the resources in the
Mm.
planet, what would be your first step?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Ivan. I believe it's leveling up everyone's physical and mental and maybe spiritual. It's not like this is not like kind of like religious talk, but I feel like in order to advance like humanization, I just do I feel like somebody has to create a education system that works for 21st century, because as you know, like education right now is just dated back to the industrial revolution, where you have to work in a factory because you don't have time to for your kids to hang out on the street, and they'll just do bad stuff, so you keep them in a school. And I feel like the world has changed, and it's good that AI is coming along so that people can interact with AI and actually personalize your learning. And then whatever you want to do, you ask a question, and then just like you mentioned, drill down to the rabbit hole and constantly asking questions. I think that's how people grow. So once you elevate someone's intelligence, then you can solve a lot of problems, like global warming. Maybe like if everyone's IQ in the world has leveled up to like, what do you know what's the normal IQ? Is it 100? I don't even know. Anyway, like if you level up to like 130 or 150, then everyone is gonna be smart, and no one has to rely on Elon Musk to solve the world's biggest challenge, right? Everyone is as smart as him, and then I think the world would be just better. I think it's just that we haven't really unlocked human potential. I think people are smart, and I think it's just having access to resources that really help them grow, because everyone has their own innate ability to do great work, but it's just that it hasn't been unlocked because of our current education or the society. So I think with the right mindset, with AI tapping into someone's potential, it could help elevate everyone well being on Earth. It's just my kind of grand scheme of thing when I think about this stuff. But of course, it's going to be really far fetched.
And what would you say your first step of breaking that status quo would be if you basically have everything in your tip of your hand?
Like, sorry, so can you repeat it?
Sorry, I was like, if you have all the resources in the at
Mm-hmm.
the tip of your hand,
Yes.
what would be the first step
Yeah.
of that goes towards this plan?
Yeah, I think it's asking people, do they want to change? It, as you know, it's really hard to change someone, right? And so I think you just have to ask them if they're willing to kind of change themselves, because having a old belief system, it takes a lot of effort to change it. So basically, finding the right people who want to change, want to be changed, and then you figure out how to change it. So maybe just kind of invite them to change. Sorry, I think
Interesting.
my internet got cut out for a bit. Yeah, hopefully it's good, right? Sorry.
It's good. It's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
No problem. We're still online.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
All right. So I think we talked about something that's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and
Hmm.
allow me to sort of jump right into a little bit
Yeah.
because I agree with that. If people get a little bit more smarter, maybe we could come up with better solution to fixing sort of a bigger problem in this world. And I agree with it. I agree with that statement 100%. Like no doubt about it. I would say when there's some like from what I've learned over the past years of working, I've never seen the lack of smart people, but I would say the biggest thing that's stopping from changing is one, personal interest. I would say if somebody crosses that, then it's going to be very hard for anything to become a change. And so, like, how would you sort of go about handling these kind of conflict and potential resistance where everybody's having their own agenda and coming across that, okay, this is not something that I would care for, and how would you go about that?
Yeah, I think maybe we're tapping into the competitive nature of human. Like, basically, everyone is just thinking of like zero sum game. You either you win or I lose. So yeah, this kind of me kind of thing is not good. I mean, us, like including me, I get into the habit of, okay, what if I share my secret and then somebody takes it and I no longer hold the secret. So I'm beginning to kind of step away from it because I want to think instead of me, but we. Because yeah, life is short. I think it's just better to build things together as opposed to yourself, and that's why you have to start building a community. I think that's why the WhatsApp group that we're part of is good. Maybe it's like still early because it's just us talking, but
Mm,
at least we are the change. We are the initial drivers, and we create the momentum, and then let the momentum, create the snowball effect and affects others. It's going to take a long time, so maybe having a long term view about it. And yeah, it's definitely not easy. I would say it's tough. I think, but first you change it yourself. You try to transform yourself first before you can transfer other, and let yourself be a testament of something that you can change, and then you can just systematize your change process, and maybe show them they can change as well.
interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, like, tell me, what's the one thing that you've changed recently that you weren't able to change for the longest time? And tell me one thing that you wish to change, but you still haven't yet to be able to change it.
I would say doing this type of talk, more like a in-depth talk, as opposed to just watching people doing webinar. Because I have been like passively consuming information, and I think that's healthy. But if you want to contribute part of the conversation, I think you have to be part of the conversation instead of passively doing it. And I've been waiting because I always want to find the best tool, best software, perfect my voice, perfect my pitch, how do I look and all that stuff, and it prevented me from getting started. And I've learned recently, you have to get sucked at first to do anything great. So if you're not starting, then you don't know if you're good or bad. Usually it's just bad in the beginning because you haven't tried it. So I think first time trying everything is gonna get sucked, and you need to get comfortable with sucking, then you can improve yourself. So that's like the my like recent shift that I have to get started. Don't be afraid of getting sucked, and then that's part of the process.
And I think the way how you're answering the question is, doing this podcast or recording is the first thing that you did to change something that you have been able to change for the longest time. So, what's the one thing that you couldn't change or you have yet to be able to change that you really wish to get rid of it or change it a little bit or do it differently?
Yeah, I think what's hard to do is really finding my voice because I have a lot of ideas, but I'm not really focused on one thing. I like to talk about mindsets. I also like to talk about B2B marketing. I also like to talk about startups. So I don't have a niche. I don't have a strong point of view on something because a lot of social media content, they're a little bit polarized. They polarize in a good sense because you're really strong in one stand. Because if you are average, then you're really, everyone's kind of like content, right? You want to be a spike. You want to have a spiky point of view,
Mm.
and you also want to really double down on your prediction because I think people like preferences like that are really strong. Sometimes maybe social media has gotten pushing people to actually pick a side, but that is what I'm lacking. Like, what is my number one thing that people can associate with me? And I don't have it. I maybe it's an intersection of a lot of things. So I'm still finding that. And maybe when you listen to me talking, maybe have you found anything that stood out to you when I'm talking?
Yeah, I mean, actually, this is one of the questions that I also wanted to ask is how would you imagine or how would I put it? Like in your mind, what do you think the others have? What kind of impression of you? Like when people talk about Johnny, in your mind, what do you think? Like what's in their mind when they think of Johnny?
Yeah, that's a very meta question. Let's see. Maybe I would like the word creative. I hope people perceive me as a creative person because I just either distracted or create or maybe too many ideas. That is wishful thinking. I hope. Like I always kind of talk bad about myself. I don't know how other people see me, but yeah, maybe too creative or lack of focus. I'm kind of jumpy. Like when I talk with people, I think people perceive me as jumpy, like just changing topics so quickly
Hmm.
without having them enough time to understand the context switching. Because I sometimes I really hard feel really difficult holding a thought for a long time, and then I just like switch it back and forth like a monkey mind kind of thing. So that's what I think people will perceive me as. I hope it's a maybe it's positive or maybe it's negative. I don't know. That's I'm also like a little bit undecided sometimes. So making decisions left and right. So I don't know. Yeah, don't have a strong opinion because I don't really think about what other people think of me too. I just I just do stuff. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse.
I think sometimes it's a blessing.
Mm.
When you care too much about how people think about you, then it sort of it 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 really sort of demoralize everything that you do.
Mm.
Sort of like, oh, I'm afraid that people would think bad of me. What if I do something, made a mistake? What's gonna happen? And I think we could all find ourselves a lot of stories that we've made some mistake that we wish that we didn't make, but I
Mm.
guess we all learned, our lessons and got the better out of it, and so that's pretty much what it matters.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so like, and what would you? So you told me that you think people think think of you as all over the place. What have you ever done the test 16 personalities?
No, I have done disc model
Okay, okay.
and Maya bricks.
Oh,
So I think mine is introvert and thinking and intuition and something else I forgot. But I'm not sure about my disc model is. But yeah, tell me about the 16 personality model.
I think that's Myers-Briggs. So which
My bricks.
is
Okay.
yeah. So that's like four-letter word. It's either you're introvert, extrovert, you're a
Mm,
thinker, intuition, and I think something it's about forward thinking or perception or something. So it's
yeah.
ENFP, ESDP, INSJ, and so those are the 16 personalities, so to speak. And so I was wondering if you would be you're going to be similar to what mine is because I
Mm,
think I share a pretty similar sort of experience as you do,
yeah.
which is sort of like
Yeah.
a scattered brain, a lot of ideas all over the place. I started developing other ideas before people realizing what I'm talking about, and so I think that's pretty much. And I have a Google Drive that is filled with
Mm,
uncompleted ideas.
mm.
Blogs, posts, articles, ideas, or even project ideas that I wanted to do. So yeah, you're definitely not alone.
It's good that you are capturing ideas because it's usually it's people lacking of ideas, but having good ideas is good. Like just they will serve us if it's important. So it's good to keep a backlog of ideas in case you need to look it up. And of course, AI can help. Like just data dump a lot of your ideas into AI and help it use it to organize your thoughts. I think that's really good. And the other one is introspection and self-aware. By recording this video, I think not just us, but you guys, like the people who are watching it, you guys can record your voice, talk to someone that you know, or friend, or connection, or colleague, so that you can hear what you're saying. Because I feel like your thoughts are just kind of messy, but when you talk it out, externalize it, record it, then you can actually be a third person watching yourself speak, as if you're watching yourself as a student or the other side of the world. Like just pretend that this person is talking to you, and then you get to learn and observe that person.
Yeah, I think we talked about it. Something similar to sort of that comes together with that kind of idea is about startups. Like, how do you come up with a good startup idea? And I think I personally feel like a lot of the startup founder basically started their idea with only the voice in their head.
Mm,
And I'm not saying the 1% or the less than 1% that really succeeded, but those who really lack of, let's say, industry knowledge, and who only thought that, oh, I have a great idea, and they really literally just act upon on that idea rather than reiterating, talking about it, and hearing about their own idea and criticizing it in a very
mhm.
meta way. And so I think what you just mentioned, it's really the point is how to think clearly, and I love it. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and also execution, right? Because idea you can copy, and it's they're really cheap ideas because
Yeah,
ideas are just by itself is just something up in the air. But like when you execute it, and execution, don't take it lightly. It's just every single bit of stuff has to be made perfect. It's like Michelin star, like every part of it, the experience, the delivery, the presentation, every drop of sauce, like it just has to be meticulously designed. So that's going to be harder to copy, yeah, than just a plain idea.
for sure. Interesting. You've talked about community, right? And
Yes.
so I think it seems like it's a big focus of yours. And so let's say we're trying to get people joining into
Mm-hmm.
the community. If you can literally invite anyone on this planet Earth,
Yeah.
whether they are alive or dead, or virtual or imaginary, to join this B2B community, who would that be, and what would you like him or her to bring to the table?
God, because he created the world. I mean, yeah, metaphorically speaking, I think it's important to bring someone really historical and has a tremendous impact to this world. I'm a Christian, and I would like to bring Jesus.
Okay.
And I think, just kind of relating back to like something I'm seeing, because like B2B marketing, right? It used to be this talk called lead generation, but there's a lot more focus on demand gen. I brought this up because having someone from a religious background actually changes the entire paradigm of thinking. For example, like we always talk about, how to step up, how to maybe climb up higher and be more wealthy, whether it's material possessions. But if you think about like religious leader, like Jesus, he just flipped the world upside down. Like he didn't born to be kind of like rich, and he's kind of poor. So that's one aspect. And then the other one is Bruce Lee. Like again, like I'm not like I cannot really think of any like business leaders so far. Maybe Bruce Lee. I think I like his thinking and concepts about knowing is not enough, you must apply. Willing is not enough, you must do. So kind of like this kind of thinking, I think it will help people. And let me see who else. Maybe you can pick one, Ivan. You can pick one. You'll be the advisory board or something. Pick one.
Huh, interesting. I oh, on top of my head, maybe B2B. I would say
Oh, is that what you're asking? B2B? Sorry, I just I just went off tangent. Sorry about that.
that's all good. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
God could be because if we're
You
about
open up a
listening,
one open minded. So my thought just flew about the whole conversation. So sorry for
that's all
getting.
good.
Yeah.
I would say every sort of practice is sort of like a religion.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta believe
Yeah.
in it in some sort of way, and so
Yeah.
maybe that's how God could be cross pathing with B2B. That's where all lead comes is
Yeah.
God's will. So
How about this? How about the god of the father of advertising, Ogilvy? I really admire his work. And
oh
if people has read his book, forgot his name, I forgot the book name, but yeah, maybe the book is Ogilvy. It has a big word, but
yeah.
it the stuff he talks about is still relevant. The thing is, like, you have to find people whose work has passed through the time and is time tested and is unchanged. What I like about his book is he taps into human nature. It's less about tactics, but more about principles. And when you do B2B marketing, and you really have to tap into the human nature. Someone asked me, like, how do you beat the algorithm on LinkedIn? Like, how do you get more impressions? And I've heard a podcast that it's not about algorithm, it's about human nature, understanding human nature, because algorithm is there to please human, because if the algorithm doesn't generate enough impressions, that the platform doesn't make any money. So it has to kind of understand human nature, like what gets people clicked. But if you don't even know how human nature works, how do you actually write an algorithm that gets attention, like drive what they call ECPM, like estimated cost per 1,000 impressions, so they can make money? That's how publishers or LinkedIn or Facebook monetizes, based on ECPM. That's how I think. So his book is able to tap into the nature. It's like Robert Cialdini principles, like
hmm
the mere exposure effect. The more you're exposed to something, the more you're gonna like it. That's why maybe Coca-Cola has been showing us like polar bear and iceberg. It's just giving you this kind of sensation when you pop that kind of lid open. So it's a long-winded answer. So I think, yeah, if it's B2B, I would bring David Ogilvy into the picture.
Interesting. I think I share a similar point of view. I would say for me, I would invite probably just a general person, but a therapist,
Okay.
because I think we've spoken before about B2B get a bad rap, and it's
Mm,
it's more about pushy ads and all that, and it's just trying to make quota. But I
yeah.
think it's really against what sales is really about, and it's
Yeah.
about helpfulness and
Right.
about listening, active
Yeah.
listening. And so, especially when I believe that it's a skill that can be taught, but in
Mm-hmm.
general, men are not a good listener. And
Yeah.
I speak on behalf of men because I'm one of
Mm,
them too. Last
yeah.
time I checked, and so I would say learn how to listen, ask really good questions, and sort of reflect and be able to say yes, this is what I could help, or no, this is not what I can help, and here are things that I think it could be helpful. And so it's more of an advisory sort of
Advisory.
theopathic
Yeah.
kind of position more so than anything like, oh, I'm going to push you of buying this because I think you really needed it. Although
Mm,
I think at the end of the day, you're still going to be forking out money from your pocket and buying something, but I
yeah.
think the experience is going to be totally different, and
Right.
how you feel towards something definitely affects sort of the user experience when you go through that product or
Mm,
service. when you go through that. And so I
That's
sort of
good.
like, yeah. So like yeah, it
That
goes really well because I think it goes well with ad as well because ad is
oh
basically like effective ad is understanding
yeah
what your audience is and speaking their
yeah
language and resonate with
got it. You know what's you brought up a good point like whether you brought on a psychologist or therapist is like the emotional side of things. Maybe Ogilvy is like the father of advertising, and he has some kind of aspect of maybe psychology. But it's good
them.
that you brought it up because people buy things or people choose things based on their emotions. I would also I recently actually learned that to have a board of advisor or directors, you actually also need to invite your customer. So customer could be your panelist. Like I heard that when you have a big meeting, like making decision, you always leave a empty chair, and that empty chair is your customer. So everyone is like, oh, who's that empty seat? Is your customer. So you have this empathy when you make decisions. So I think that's kind of interesting. It makes you think harder about making every decision when you look at that empty chair, which is your customer. Maybe the other seat is your anti customer, like you know people who hate your product. Maybe you have a really different point of view, and that's how you make a better service because you're trying to figure out why people don't like your product or not yet ready to buy your product.
I think you brought up a really good point, which I don't think I don't think it's mentioned enough. Is like anti-client or anti-customer is
Mm.
because we're all in B2B right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that really understanding who is not your customer brings you closer, faster towards your goal. Would you
Yes,
agree with that statement? And how would you like? What's your thought on that?
I would. Before I wasn't agree on that. I would say just land grab all the everyone is your ICP. But
Yeah.
then the more I realize it, the more I think about having restraints actually creates freedom because it's limiting you like mental resources to actually go like double down on things that really work. So you really have to actually fire your customer because yeah you have different type of fish, but then you actually need to narrow down what type of fish that resonates, like that drive your business impact. And for me, there's a loss aversion, right? When you like have your anti persona, you feel like, oh, I will lose that customer, I will lose that pie. But don't worry, you'll get it. Focus on your core 1,000 fans first, and then you expand that circle. Maybe another country, but just not now. You gotta focus on the on your niche.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is sort of like a shout out to a good friend of mine, Wesley. He back in the university days, he introduced me to a book called I think it's called Mere Christianity.
Oh, okay.
I forgot who the author is because
C.
you mentioned.
Lewis.
I think
Yes.
so. I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think one of the takeaway that I took, like one thing that I took away from that book is what is true freedom, and which freedom is in a boundless, like boundless doesn't mean freedom. Boundless,
Mm.
it has to have some sort of form of constraint or restriction in order for something like a paradigm to call like true freedom. Because you know if we live in a lawless society, is that going to be freedom? No, it's going to
Oh.
be chaos. It's going to be like a nothing, void. And so I would say that's sort of a little bit of far fetch, I would say, but I think the connection between that and like B2B is that you need to know how to say no in order to know how to say yes. And so sort of
Yes.
like how do you value, like what do you prioritize first? And so getting client or getting new customer, it's
Yes.
a battle against not just time and but it's not just budget and money, but
Yeah.
also time, which is
Yeah.
a irreversible resources. And so like pick the battle, like which
Yes.
battle would you want to win first, and how much resources you're going to throw in. And so saying yes to everybody and with no boundaries is not going to help. And more specifically, like if you're bootstrapping, time is the biggest resources and the only like it's so scarce that you can get more. And so like how do you be able to sort of maximize your gain with the littlest amount of resources?
Yeah. So now you're
So
tapping into a prioritization, right? How do you make sure what is the right decision? And I've learned that working at Facebook or Meta, there's a saying that's you have to prioritize until it hurts, and sometimes you have to prioritize until you have regrets, and that's really painful, right? When you hear me speak like that, it's like, man, that's what prioritization is. You gotta have sacrifices.
I love that. I love that. You know, sometimes it's just tricky battle.
It's
No,
tricky. Yeah.
talking about battle, I think because Silicon Valley is one of the most hottest place. I wouldn't say like temperature wise, but
Yeah.
hottest place on the planet Earth that goes
Yeah.
on. Like and most of the time, like trends comes from Silicon Valley, and so
Mm.
I've got like five keywords right here. Can you help me to rank them
Yes.
from least to most worth paying attention to keywords out
Okay.
there,
Sure.
and walk me through what are your rationale about that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So the first one is blockchain.
Yeah. Let me write down so I can. I'm a visual person. I just need to like have some physical and mental association with it when I write words out. Okay.
Sure.
Blockchain.
Blockchain, product management,
Yes.
biohacking, big data,
Yep.
and disruptive technology.
Isn't those a subset of disruptive technology, or is it separate? Like what kind of? Just
Doesn't
to
matter. Like
refine.
yeah,
Yeah.
you could I
Okay.
would say in your own interpretation. Like how would you
Yeah.
interpret them? Definitely go for it.
Is it my view or what I think? What Silicon Valley, like their order of priorities?
Your view, your view.
My view. Hmm.
Yes.
Blockchain. I don't really know. I still don't know what that is exactly. So I'll probably put it on the last. Let me just write out the last.
Okay. So that would
I
be
like
the first.
biohacking because
Okay.
I think maybe I just list it out first so I can tell you my rationale.
Okay.
Yeah, actually. Would you like to guess what I put in?
All right. I'll take a stab. So
Yes.
the least is blockchain,
Yeah.
then product management. Then I would say it sounds like it's disruptive technology and biohacking, and the most worth paying attention is big data.
Okay, so big data is the top.
Yes.
Okay. A little bit opposite. Let me just show you. You can see
Oh,
it.
okay. Okay. Blockchain, it's number five. So disruptive is number one.
Yeah.
Two. Oh, biohack is two. Okay.
Yeah.
Big data is three. Okay. Yeah. Why is that?
So I put disruptive technology as number one because if you don't have the right tool and system, you really cannot really change the status quo. For
Mm,
example, this CRISPR technology where you can do gene editing, right? So that's pretty awesome. So you need to have this kind of breakthrough technology before you can do anything else. Otherwise, it will just keeping the status quo. Like if you don't have an automobile, you just have horses, pulling, you know, a trolley or something. So you need
mm,
to have something exponentially helpful, which is using technology to scale up human whatever endeavors they have. So number one, that's technology, disruptive technology, and then the other one is biohacking. And I think biohacking is basically, I would say, preventative, kind of like healthcare, because when you see a doctor, it's like you already have a symptom and you already got sick, and then you see it. But I would like to take it a bit further. It's like how do you ensure something that doesn't go wrong? So you actually try to hacking is might not be a good connotation when you think of hacking, but like biohacking, I see as you know uh, controlling your health before it gets worsened. So that's
mm.
what I mean. Like people at Silicon Valley, they do a lot of interesting, crazy stuff, right? Like psychedelic and not endorsing any of those on this
Yeah.
video interview, and then cold plunge and whatever therapies, outer state like that kind of stuff. I think
Mm,
that's kind of interesting, taking control of your health. So I think that's why I put it number two, because in order to do anything, you have to be healthy, right? So that's why I put number two. And number three, big data is important because now you have the technology. Now you know the process of getting healthy. Now you actually have to check your performance, like a campaign. I bought this Oura ring a couple years ago to track my sleep, and I've been using it to kind of tell how I should act, how I should do my stuff. Like if I'm really low on the score, I will probably don't do much intense exercise.
Hmm.
So using data to drive everyday decision. And then once you have the data, it's really messy. Then you have to use a product to kind of systemize and have a way to package the data. That's why you need a product management, like just managing the data. So data management or using a product to manage data. And then last one is the blockchain. Yeah, this one I'm not familiar. I think it's just a ledger to keep track of all the changes. That's my understanding, and to be able to audit the data to make sure that it's valid and doesn't get tampered. I think maybe this is some innovative innovative stuff. I'm not sure. That's why I put it on the last. So I don't want to say thing. I don't really know. So I put it on the very last of the list.
It's all good. I like
Yeah,
that list. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. So I think we're almost there where we're sort of wrapping up. But before we end this section, I would like to ask you, the final question, which is, what do you hope me to ask you about, but I did not?
yeah. Maybe I was watching an anime. I'm just gonna advertise. I watched this animation, Japanese animation yesterday. It's
Oh,
called Hero, the Heron and the Boy.
okay.
It's by a Japanese. What's his name? Gong John. What I learned about it is the topic is how do you live your life. And I find it really fascinating. This movie is inspired by this book. How do you live your life? And then that kind of let me think about how does my career, how does B2B change my life? And that's the question that maybe I maybe you would like to ask me. Is that
Sure.
yeah? I think that's something.
Well, we could ask that question. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how did B2B change your life?
Yeah, it's just like anything in life. I think B2B, what I like about it is you have to take action to drive more actions. For example, if you have a lead come in, you actually have to reach out to them. You cannot passively wait until they call you. You have to proactively call them because
Hmm.
people are passive in nature, by nature. So you have to actually both be proactive and outreach to them and help them and drive impact, to really see if they're a good fit. So don't be afraid to proactively take action. So I think that's one thing I learned about B2B. It also not just one touch, but multi-touch, because you might not contact them at the right time. They might have a different state of mind when you contact them. So maybe multiple touches, just like anything in life.
Oh, I think.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, consistently follow up. I think that's kind of important. Follow up skills and don't give up that early.
All right. Appreciate all the good goldies and you sharing your experience with us. Hope I'll be seeing you more, and hope I'll be able to bring you again, and our audience will be able to get to know about you a little bit more. Maybe we could follow up with definitely connect through LinkedIn. You could find both Johnny and myself in LinkedIn, or the WhatsApp group that Eric and Johnny and I are promoting from time to time. So you could always find us there, and hope that's a wrap. And thank you,
Thank you,
Johnny.
Ivan. Thank you,
Thank
Ivan,
you,
for
thank
asking
you.
all those intriguing questions. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Lovely. All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Good night.